Well, it's the beginning of this long, like 30-ish mile backpacking trip. Trail is pretty burnt up here and overgrown, but just the beginning of a fun week. Definitely hazier than normal. There's so many hummingbirds.
Well, you just saw the beginning of a long trip. There's gonna be two parts to this video. One is more of the You're gonna see a bunch of dogs running in and out through some of these recordings, so it's gonna be a good time. Because I have no idea how they'll react, but hopefully it'll be kind of funny. But this video will end up being two parts, mainly because there was two sections to this journey. It's a long backpacking trip. I think we did like over 30 miles on the trail, but I checked my Apple Watch after the whole trip and it ended up being a little over 60 miles in 6 days. So some of the cutaways and stuff, or some of the commentary while we're up there will be a little inaccurate because past Keaton's stupid, but future Keaton, well, he's smarter, I think. But in part one, you'll get to see a lot more photography stuff because the first 3 days of this trip, we were eating good because we hired a mule team or like a packer, and they packed in a bunch of extra supplies for us. So we were eating good. I was a lot more enthralled to take pictures because we weren't walking all day, every day. But I also had some film gear on me and just some heavier equipment. So it was really nice. The mules did a lot of heavy lifting. So part one will be a lot more photo focused, but part two, a little bit more of the storyline and just where the journey ended up taking us. But in these first two pictures, one of them was taken on my Sony A1. The second picture was taken on my great-grandfather's Yashica mat on gold 200 film. So we got there, day one, kind of relaxed in the afternoon. I think I remember doing a little bit of fishing, but more relaxing than fishing for sure. But as the day went on, as I got to relax a little bit, the clouds just were looking like they were gonna be perfect. So I ran up with some buddies to the top of this ridge that's right by our camp, and it's just a great vantage point to where if the clouds did turn, we would be in the right spot at the right time.
Beans, it's what's for dinner.
We just hiked up this ridge above the lake, and we're gonna kind of wait to see if we get any color from the sun. It's looking promising with all these blue kind of wispy clouds, so we'll see what happens. But there's a couple lakes that we're overlooking, so hopefully it turns pink somewhere. So currently we're staying at this lake right here. In a couple days we're going to walk around this ridge and eventually make our way into the area at the base of the peak at the far end of this frame. Joe Crane Lake, Sadler, McClure, that's where we're going to end up. So I am very excited to get there. Over here's the Minarets on the other side of Ansel Adams Wilderness. Kind of crazy and again a little smoky, but yeah. And then we got this cool old tree. I'm not sure what kind it is, but it is beautiful. It's probably been up here for a long time in some pretty harsh conditions.
At this point, because of the mules, thank you, I had a Canon AE1, which was my grandpa's, and then I had the Yashica Mat, which was my great-grandfather's, and I had my Sony A1, and here's some of the pictures that I got during that little stint. I think that was my favorite moment of the trip, which just happened to be night one, at least for photo video wise. It was just the perfect lead up into the perfect sunset, because Past Keaton was saying, hey, I think we're gonna get a good sunset. And for once, Past Keaton got it right. Good job. Because here's the sunset that we ended up getting.
And this is why we came up here tonight.
Well, the dogs are going pretty nuts down below, right here off camera. They're just fighting. But while we were watching this sunset, we were just being serenaded with some AM radio. It was very fascinating. And then Jeff decides to turn it off at some point. It was really great.
This country's garbage. But not total garbage. We've done some good things, even though we still suck. It's a constant tightrope they walk. Joe Biden actually just did it recently. I don't have the sound bite. Excited for recently that statement he put out. He said this before, something along the lines of America has the ideals of freedom.
Do you want me to turn this off while you're doing
You
that?
can. Jeff, what would you rate this sunset right now?
Probably 7.
That's it?
Yeah. If it wasn't so hazy, I would rate it a little bit more.
Facts.
It's just too hazy up here. If it wasn't hazy, I'd give it a 10.
I think the haze has sort of helped with the color, because it is bright pink.
The one thing that I regret is the film that I loaded into my AE1 and my Yashica. I think I had 200 speed film in, and so when I was trying to get some of the pictures as sun was going down, I wasn't able to really fully capture what was there because the speed of the film was just too low, and some of the larger format pictures were a little blurry, or at least a little bit more blurry than I'd like. But overall, I think that these are some of the best pictures that I've gotten in the backcountry up to date. It was just one of the perfect sunsets. Jeff rates it a 7 somehow. But I mean, honestly, it's got to be in the top 5 sunsets that I've seen while my backpacking adventures have occurred. But nothing beats a good grocery store parking lot sunset. But this one was up there. I wanted to carve out just one little snippet for astrophotography because I didn't get as many of those photos because they take much longer to get each photo. But it was like the perfect conditions on this trip. It was very little moon, pretty good visibility at night. There's a couple clouds early in the trip, but later on, not so much. But these pictures are from the first 3 days, and I hiked up a couple ridges to get a couple of them, and it was just spectacular. The Milky Way was truly on full display, and I was just loving every second of it, even though it was a little cold at night. But these photos were taken on my Sony A1 with the 17 to 28 Tamron lens. The reason why I have it, honestly, I shoot with the Tamron 17 to 28 and then 28 to 75 when I backpack because they're both f2.8. They both have the same filter size and they are much, much lighter than the Sony G Master alternatives. And when you're walking as many miles as I do, every ounce counts.
Day 2 of the trip, we're trying to catch some fish, but it's overcast and call for thunderstorms. Looks like they might roll in. So we'll see what happens, but it's been pretty cloudy. Not doing a whole lot today, just kind of bracing for impact if there is a thunderstorm. So all right, we're in our tent. Look at that moat right there.
Perfectly designed by
Perfect.
the Beaten Caker.
The Beaten Caker.
And it's pouring.
Yeah, and I just farted in our tent, so it's gonna be a long rainstorm.
Woo!
Well, it was just an afternoon full of rain. I took a nap. It was pretty interesting, to say the least. We've had some rougher storms over the years when we've been up at that lake. And what was cool was right after the storm, the clouds cleared, and it was just the most sunny, clear afternoon. It's honestly just the images that I feel like when I see the Sierra Nevada in my mind, when I'm dreaming about summer, it was that moment. And I feel like film really took this to the next level. I believe I was still had that roll of Kodak Gold in there, and this is what it was made for.
Well, the rain lasted a little bit, sprinkled for an hour and a half, 2 hours, but the tough patch was pretty short. But now skies have kind of cleared, and up here on this ridge, and I'm getting ready to hopefully get some good sunset photos with some clouds over this ridge. Beautiful night yet again. was not the sunset that I was hoping for. I think that there were some low-lying clouds that I couldn't see on the other side of the mountains, blocked the clouds getting lit from underneath and creating all those nice colors. But Blue Hour was pretty dope. So day 2 is coming to an end. It was eventful. Some thunder and lightning right over the head of us, right over our heads, and we still got a few more days left. So we'll see what day 3 brings us tomorrow.
Now this is where I'm gonna stop part 1 because the trip begins to kind of take on a new feel as we wake up and we end up kind of just going a different direction with the trip. I have to ditch some of my heavier photo gear because we really have to cover some ground each day that we're covering now. And so it goes kind of from more of this artistic trip to, hey, we got to go on this adventure of a lifetime, in my opinion, and just cover so many miles, more than I'd ever covered in the same period of time before. And it was rough, but it was fun. And just this beginning part of the trip, man, I got to see a killer sunset. I got to do some astrophotography, got to experience an afternoon thunderstorm in the Sierras, even got to catch a few fish, even though I didn't really show that. I show it in this next part because this next part really is the more outdoorsy aspect of backpacking and hiking rather than just the photos.
Well, we're leaving the first lake, and morning of day 4, we spent the morning packing up, and now we're making our trek either to Sadler or Joe Crane, depending on how fast we go. So an 8 to 11 mile day, and it's gonna be one for the record books probably.
So this is kind of the moment where we leave our heavy camping site. We leave the luxury of having the mules. We've resupplied our backpacks because we had mules take some stuff in. And we begin this long journey, my dad and I. And it was kind of interesting because, well, it's just a different kind of vibe of a trip from here on out. I just mentioned that we have like an 8 to 12 mile day because we weren't sure where we're gonna walk. And we ended up doing about 12, or at least my watch said that we did 12. And it was some of the roughest hiking that I've ever done. We went off trail for a lot of it. And even some of the trails that we were on were not maintained very well. But this is truly more of the adventure, and we thought we were signing up for one, and you'll see throughout this video, we got a different one. But I remember right before we were leaving, it's like, all right, we're finalizing which supplies are we leaving, which ones are we taking, how heavy do we want to be, and I had some toilet paper, and then I had a whole other roll, and I was looking at it like, do I really want to carry this for the next 5 days from here on out, or it's like 5 or 6 days? Will I really need it? And I remember saying to my dad, like, I don't know, like we're pretty tight on space, but if we needed it, we'd be really glad we had it. And if we didn't need it, it's not that heavy, whatever. So we ended up taking it. And you'll find out why that was crucial later on in this video. So yeah, little cliffhanger there, but you've probably already done the math.
We have proof that we put out our fire.
That was one hot fire.
That's crazy. So this tree that's growing out of the rock, you can see this little chunk fell off of it, but we've been hiking in here and this has been like a landmark, and this is the first time that we've seen it with that chunk that has fallen off, so it full on split the rock. All right, so right in there, there's got to be 15, 20, maybe 30 fish in this pool. And I'm gonna try and get me one. Man, there's like a school of about 50 of them. Interesting. Oh, yep. We got one, just lipped him on the nymph.
So at this point, we've walked a few miles. We've gotten to see some stuff that we were familiar with, and then we take this right-hand turn to link up with a different trail. And we found this like cool little fishing hole, and we caught a couple fish there, which was pretty cool. We had a nice little break, and this day was really nice. We had a lot of ground to cover, but it was pretty, I don't want to say leisurely, because we had a lot of ground to cover and we had to beat sundown. But it was nice just having a day where all we had to do is walk from point A to point B and weren't really in a rush to get anywhere. But from this point, it was pretty soon after this that we actually decided to do a little bit of off-trail extravaganza. So yeah, pretty soon after this watering hole, we continued on a pretty poorly maintained trail. And at one point we see this trail that's kind of marked on all trails and doesn't look like it's really ever been maintained. We've seen another entry point to the trail for many, many years, and it doesn't look like anyone's really ever used it, at least in my lifetime. And so we're like, hey, we'll try and find it, and we'll bushwhack it from here. So we ended up, I think, bushwhacking the next like 7 or 8 miles until we got to Joe Crane Lake. So that was pretty cool. But here's a little bit more from that part of our trip.
We just stopped for some cell reception, and we're gonna bushwhack it between 2 trails, and it's gonna be a long day. Yeah. Beautiful.
Is that Tall Peak, Madera Peak?
Not too many people have walked through this meadow, or grassy area, or whatever you want to call it. When the last video update, we were walking through like this meadow, and shortly after the video, we saw like 5 or 6 piles of bear poop. So we tried to get out of there as quick as we could, and it was tough. It was tough.
Yeah, so we walked through this little like green area that's not really a meadow, but it's pretty close to a meadow. There's just a bunch of grass on the side of this mountain and a lot of down trees. But what was interesting about it was there was a lot of bear poop in this little stretch. We saw one, it was like, huh, that's different. And then we started seeing, I think I mentioned like 5 or 6 piles of bear poop, but it was a lot more than that. I took a picture with my cell phone, and because I was like, hey, we probably should get out of here quick because I don't want to deal with that. So I took a picture with my cell phone, and you know how the kids say, pics or it didn't happen. So it should be right here on the screen. And we got out of there as quick as we can. Luckily, we were just beginning a long uphill stretch, so now we had the urgency to really power through that uphill stretch. But what was really neat was right after we got out of the meadowy area, and we were still climbing out of there, I found like 5 or 6 pieces of obsidian just all in this like little gully that was in one of the riverbeds up there. So that was a pretty big score. I still got them in my office. So I don't know. It's just one of the cool parts of hiking in the Sierra Nevada and also passing the time when you're just walking from point A to point B for hours is looking for obsidian on the ground. And I just think it's really neat.
The views off this ridge have just been insane.
Amazing.
And I'm not just stopping to record so I get a break.
So what you just saw was, I feel like, the most scenic part of the entire hike was we got past the ridge where we saw the bear poop, and it just opens up into this huge valley, and you can see the minarets across the way. And we got to the top of this ridge, found the abandoned trail that really looked like it had been maintained in my lifetime at least. And we soon abandoned that trail and just skirted the ridge because we didn't feel like walking all the way down into this ravine just to climb back up to get to our destination. So we skirted the ridge and just got some beautiful shots. And I honestly, I think this is where my blister truly began to form. However, it was worth it because the views were just incredible, and we would not have got them if we had gone down into the valley.
I like that we're going to. It's down in this bowl. This is what is keeping us in business off the grid all week long.
So we got to our destination that night, and it was beautiful, to say the least. It was so beautiful. But we were pretty gassed, so we had to, get firewood, we had to set up our camp, we had to make dinner, all of that good stuff. And so I didn't end up doing a little recap while we were up there. But it was a nice night. We were exhausted after walking 12 miles, most of which were not on a trail. And we just passed out that night, I'm not gonna lie. We just pretty much went straight to bed after hanging around the fire just after we cooked, and had a nice steak dinner that night. And this is kind of a turning point in our trip because the next day we woke up, we ate some breakfast, and then we kind of started to feel not right. And even though we had eaten some steaks the night before, we didn't realize this till the next morning, but we were kind of like force feeding ourselves these steaks, and something just didn't feel right that night. But we were just like, maybe it's just because we're tired. But the next day we kind of started to find out more. But in most of the video recaps, I tried to hide that for a little while.
Finishing up here at Joe Crane. We did not catch a fish. We got 2 bites on some pretty big rainbow trout. Did not land either of them though.
He hooked one and jumped, and he started reeling it out.
Yeah. I did get one on the hook, so.
Yeah.
But we're heading out, and we're heading to either Sadler or McClure, probably McClure today. So, Joe Crane, it was good seeing you. I don't know if we'll be back. So we just ran into this guy on the trail at the lake that we were camped at last night. There's this camp and we hadn't seen anyone there, and it was just odd. Red flags were going off. And then we're walking down the trail today, and we've seen one person since we left camp Sunday morning. And this dude told us that he got lost for 3 days. He went on a day hike 3 days ago and wandered around the mountains up here, and somehow he found some people. They got him to a trailhead. He hitched a ride to a pack station, and then they fed him, got him his car, and then got him ready to go get his stuff again. But crazy.
So yeah, we ended up running into this dude who was just walking back to get his stuff. He'd been missing for 3 days, and the funny part about this, and why I still kind of get a little riled up about it, is he goes and he gets his stuff this night of the trip. And my dad and I were supposed to meet some people like 1 day after we run into said guy. And we're meeting a group of people from our church, and so the guy who we ran into on the trail, he goes, packs up his stuff, and then hikes about halfway out. Well, he's camping at the same lake that the group of people from my church that we're supposed to meet up with are. And they run into each other and they talk, and the people from church, they're like, hey, did you run into a guy, father and son? And the guy who was missing was like, yeah, I was missing for 3 days, tells them the whole story, and then is like, yeah, that father and son, they said that they ran into like a area with bears, but those guys are liars. They did not see bears. There's no bears in this area and all that stuff. And it's like, in hindsight, I didn't show the guy that I had the picture on my phone, so to him, there's no pictures, therefore it didn't happen. But also, that's what you care about? That was your takeaway from our conversation? The whole thing? Like, come on. That's what you cared about? So, I don't know. Maybe I'm just, spinning my wheels and caring about something that really doesn't matter. But man, I just still, like, that was the guy's takeaway. Hey, let me tell all these people, which he didn't know that we were gonna talk to him the next day, which I think is the funniest part, is because my buddies are just like, yeah, the guy called you a liar. Ha 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 ha. I'm still not laughing.
Fishies in a waterfall. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. To McClure Lake, there's a whole dam that stops up the water, which is crazy.
Thank you.
Wow. McClure Lake. Holy cannoli. Beautiful view. And then right down there is where we're gonna camp tomorrow. It's gonna be dope.
So we walked past a lake called Sadler Lake, and it was beautiful. A nice little lake. Didn't look like it was very deep, but it's nestled in this valley, and so we were walking past it to get to our final destination, which is McClure Lake. And McClure is interesting because it has a really big dam that's constructed out of like cement and rocks that somebody had found along the way. I still am trying to figure out why did they build it, but it was so big that's like, who would do this? What's even the purpose of this? But it did create a nice bigger lake that's in the back of this like granite valley. I think there's like maybe one small lake that feeds into it, but just this granite bowl that has some extra water, and because of the dam that was built. But we ended up fishing here. It was actually, I think, the best fishing lake that we had after the first lake that we were at. But we were able to catch a bunch of fish on our fly rods, and it was just so much fun. I'd definitely go back to this lake. But at this point in our journey, we were kind of struggling a little bit. I mentioned a little cliffhanger about the toilet paper earlier, the decision that we had to make of, do we take more? If we needed it, we'd really appreciate it. And it was at this point where we think that it was maybe some bad water we drank, or we should have cleaned out our filter, or we just should have bought a new filter before this trip. But we got a little sick, and we were having the runs.
As I was editing this, I heard that my uncle was asking if I had any proof of our little diarrhea incident. And just because you ask, you shall receive. Gotcha.
And we had to walk 7 or 8 miles this day to get to McClure Lake. And it wasn't the most enjoyable, to say the least. Thank the Lord that I did have that extra toilet paper that I packed, because it did really come in handy, and we had enough to get us through. But it was kind of at this moment where we didn't eat really this whole day. We had some oatmeal and maybe like half a backpacking meal combined. And we just began to feel it. But we had to walk to get to our next destination. So we walked those 7 or 8 miles. We got there. We tried to make the best of it. And we just kind of hunkered down for the night. And we ended up not eating anything. And because we were not feeling it.
Nice little brook trout. I caught 2.
Did you?
Mm-hmm.
Rainbow or brookie?
Brookies.
Later on at McClure, we got another pretty good sunset. We were just in this bowl that kind of blocked a lot of the sunset, but there was a couple wispy clouds, and we finally got to sit here and relax and enjoy the sunset. And we really weren't up for doing much more than fishing right below where our camp was, and just relaxing, taking some pictures, because reality started to set in that this might be our last night out here. And so we toughed it out. We got some astro photos while we were hanging out around the campfire. Even though it wasn't the most enjoyable situation, we tried to make the most of it and just try and capture McClure for all its beauty. And I think that it was just the perfect night for some astro photos. I think this was supposed to be the best night of it on the course of our trip. And now I know why people take so much time to plan out their trips around the conditions of where the moon's at and when it rises and sets and all of that stuff, because this was, I think, just perfect conditions for astrophotography, and it truly showed.
Well, this is the morning of day 6, and haven't been feeling good for a day or so. Haven't eaten anything of substance since like Sunday night. My dad is not feeling great either, so we might hike out today, might hike out tomorrow. We're gonna see how we're feeling after breakfast, and we'll go from there. But we've hit every lake that we were supposed to already, so we might spend one more night at Sadler or pack out. So we'll kind of see where the day takes us. One unique part of McClure Lake is this pretty big dam. Not really sure why they decided to create it, but it's a lot of work for a lake this far in. Well, we're leaving McClure Lake. Good fly fishing. Only one campsite for the entire lake. I probably would actually come back here. Depends.
Fishing was fun.
Yeah, fishing's fun. Honestly, good time. But we're probably we're hiking out today. We haven't eaten anything of substance in like 2 days, so we'll be back, McClure. Maybe not we, but I will.
Yeah, maybe you.
Yeah.
So we hiked out of McClure, we walked down to Sadler. It really wasn't that far of a walk, but we were just waiting for that group of people from my church because we were supposed to meet up with them that day and do a couple more days and then hike out. But because of our situation, we were just like, hey, we're getting out of here. We can't do this anymore. And so while we were waiting, we're trying to make the most of a bad situation, and we're trying to catch some fish. We didn't catch a single one while walking around the back of Sadler, so it's tough. But we talked with them. They told us about that dude who said that we were liars. But other than that, it was a very pleasant experience. And we told them, hey, we're actually not going to stick around. We're taking off. Hi, Hattie. We ended up continuing our journey, and it was a long day. We ended up doing about 14 miles of walking that day.
This is just so crazy. Just how green it is. All the plants. Oh. All the yellow flowers. Over there. Pretty.
I made it.
I know. And it just keeps going. I wonder if this goes all the way to Cora.
Good night.
almost to Cora Lake. And the creek fire obviously got here. Right through these trees, right through there, we have Cora Lake. Beautiful Cora Lake. Are approaching this area called the niche, and it's called the niche because there's this line of mountains and this trail goes right through the niche and that line of mountains, like a niche. And I got cell reception. Nice.
We got to the niche, and we knew that we'd have cell reception in this area, or at least somewhere around here, because we'd been here before. So we made some phone calls. We're like, hey, we're actually coming home today. Explained our situation with them, and they're like, yeah, we don't really blame you. So we gave them a little heads up that we're coming home, and we decided, like, hey, we're getting out of here, and we had just a couple more miles into the car.
Pretty neat view, but sadly the creek fire got a lot of the beginning of this swath of backcountry. But the further you go in, the less you see the effects of the creek fire. We've been hiking through this brush. Sometimes it's taller than us. In the wake of the creek fire, it's just taken over by bushes. It's crazy. Good thing I'm wearing pants. Well, we're about out to the road. Been a long few days. I think I will have walked like 55 miles in 6 days or something like that, according to my Apple Watch. Exhausted. Now we head home and enjoy a nice night's sleep, and of course, a porcelain throne.
I mentioned I walked about 55 miles, and what's funny is the number's somewhere between 55 and 60. Now in hindsight and hyping up the story, I think it's closer to 60. But it was a wild few days. We were so happy to finally make it back to the car. We were even more excited to actually have a toilet because we hadn't had one in 6 days. One of the craziest parts about this is I weighed myself before to see how heavy my pack was, and I was about 55 pounds on that final part of the journey. And over the course of this trip, I think really in that last 3 days, when we were covering all those miles and we got sick, I dropped almost 15 pounds in about 3 days because we didn't eat and we were burning so many calories just walking. It was truly crazy, and we were so happy to finally be home. But as I reflect on the whole journey, I'm taking forever to shoot this recap. It's been about 6 months since we've been on that trip. It was one of the highlights of my life so far. It was the adventure of a lifetime, even though it ended up a little, or it ended a little early. It was just so much fun to be back in the woods for 6 days. I got to see so much stuff that I'd never seen before that not a lot of people really get to see. I learned recently that there's actually 3, like the dam at McClure, there's actually 3 dams back in that area, and I've actually been on top of all of them, which I think is super cool, but I still don't know why they were made. So that's gonna be one thing that I kind of do some research on pretty soon. But if I had to choose 2 to 3 favorite pictures from the entire trip, I'd pick these 3 right here. I think that they're my best. I think that they're the ones that I reflect back on when I think of the journey, when I look back on just the visuals that I have in my head and the things that I remember from this trip. These are the 3 moments that I feel like really capture just how I felt, the highs and the lows of the trip, all the effort that I put into it, and just the memories that I get to bring back from the backcountry so that other people can enjoy it with me. Because not everyone can go, but I like to share little bits and pieces of my trips, not just so that I can remember them as I do them, but so that I can share them with all you guys. So thank you for watching, and let me know where I should go next, or let me know how I can be better prepared to, be a little sick in the woods, or just how I can just not get sick. That'd be great. So thank you for watching, and please like and subscribe. You just really want to be on camera, don't you?